All right, guys, today in front of me, we have the new Jack Daniel's Tennessee Bonded Rye Whiskey. This is one of the most beautiful presentations I have ever seen. I know last time when they sent the triple mash and the Bonded Tennessee whiskey, that came in a beautiful presentation as well with wood chips and everything. But this box is just absolutely gorgeous. As you can see, it has almost like a mock tack strip here on the bottom. I did peel it up because I didn't want to rip it. But inside here, guys, we have one of the Jack Daniel's Glencairns for the Bonded Rye. We have the DSP TN-1 pin, and then the Bonded Rye whiskey here. The bottle was wrapped up in a reprint of a newspaper that had an article about Jack Daniel's. Guys, this is an absolutely beautiful presentation. I have been waiting to get into this whiskey, guys. So without further ado, let's go. All right, guys, so this Jack Daniel's Tennessee Bonded Rye Whiskey has to meet all the federal regulations of a bottled and bond rye whiskey. So it has to be distilled by a single distiller in a single distilling season. It has to be matured in a federally bonded government warehouse for at least 4 years, and again, come in at 100 proof. Let's get in the nose. So a lot of the aromas on this one they're very kind of like subtle kind of aromas, a little bit of like some nuanced kind of aromas going on in there. So you get like a little bit of like some black tea. There's also some lemon that appears further into the glass. Further away from the glass, I start to pick up more of a traditional kind of like some bourbon notes, right? You get some of that caramel, like it's almost like a salted kind of caramel on the nose, and then some vanilla further away. Yeah, so as it starts to open up, it starts to remind me a little bit of that triple mash on the nose. Not too familiar, but there is a little bit that reminds me of that triple mash, because I did have some of that Bonded Rye whiskey in there as well. But you know, this one again further away, it's like that salted caramel kind of vanilla that starts to appear there. And then further into the glass, it gets more rye forward, like some black tea, a little bit of like some lemon peel in there. I'm excited for this one, guys. Let's get to the palate. Cheers. So this one's actually a lot more earthy and herbal, a little bit citrus forward as well than I thought it was going to be. It's quite the surprise on the palate, though. It's actually pretty layered and very textured for being that minimum of 4 years. Drank maybe around that 105 range, a little bit hotter than that 100 proof, but the flavors on here are very. They last for a while. They almost kind of like, it's like one of those whiskeys that kind of saturates the palate a little bit. And again, it got very kind of citrusy and herbal there on the front of the palate. Like some of that black tea definitely present there, more so in the middle of the palate. The front of the palate displayed some of that like kind of fresh squeezed, like kind of like lemon peel a little bit on top of like some slight oak and then some caramel there on the front of the palate. Back of the palate, it got a little bit more of that rye spice, like that rye, that flavor a little bit, which I like. It's not a youthful note, but you do get that rye presence there. It lets you know that it is a rye whiskey, and it's a little bit spicy there on the back end. Medium finish to this one, short to medium finish, more on that medium side. Makes you want to go back and just continue to drink more and more. I really like this. This is good. Let's get the second sip. So after that spice, that initial spice on the back of the palate went away, it gets very sweet. There is kind of like this butterscotchy toffee kind of note there that starts to appear on the mid to back palate. Front of the palate, again, it's like a squeezed kind of lemon, caramel kind of oak flavor there on the front of the palate. Middle of the palate is still kind of like that black tea that makes its appearance there. Still a little bit like earthy, kind of herbal kind of note there. The rye flavor itself has kind of like dissipated, and it becomes more of like those sweet toffee kind of butterscotch notes that kind of appear there further into the back. But then like that, a little bit of that spiciness is still there. It's not from the proof. There is a little bit of like some baking spices going on. Not sure if that's from the oak or because I'm not really picking up any kind of like any kind of baking spice itself. That's a really, really good 100 proof rye whiskey right there. That is really good. This one took me by surprise, to be honest with you. I was not expecting those kind of flavors to come from this one. Again, I really liked the triple mash. I wasn't the biggest fan of the bonded Tennessee whiskey, but this rye is really good. Let's get a last sip, guys. Cheers. So even just off the fresh crack, there's a lot of complexities to this whiskey. Things are starting to change around on the palate now on that third sip. The front of the palate and middle of the palate has kind of maintained. It's been pretty consistent with the flavors. Again, almost like a fresh kind of squeezed lemon, some oakiness, some caramel there, and then middle of the palate still offers that kind of unique kind of like black tea, a little bit of that earthiness. And then into the back of the palate, again, it's like toffee and butterscotch. I pick up a very, very small hint of like some clove there that appears further into the back, like in the back of the throat there. Get a little bit of that clove, and maybe that's what that spiciness was coming from, because I'm not picking out any kind of like baking spices on this one. It could be from that oak presence in here. But this tastes like it's older than 4 years. It definitely tastes older than 4 years. I mean, this is along like that 6-7 year old range, but like there's different layers to this whiskey, which I really like, because like it still kind of saturates in the palate, and it's like slowly kind of releasing like these flavors across the tongue and then into the finish every time I swallow it down, man. It's very unique. It's very well balanced with some of that sweetness and some of that spice. The first sip was a little spicy. And then, from the second to third sip, it offered a lot more sweetness to it, especially more so on the back of the palate. This, in my opinion, for a rye whiskey, especially for the price point, this is a must-buy rye whiskey. Hands down. I'm really enjoying this one. I do want to see what happens to this as it gets a little bit of airtime, but in my opinion, this is a must-buy rye whiskey here from Jack Daniel's. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to give a big shout out to the team over at Jack Daniel's for sending me this amazing display here and this bottle of their Bonded Rye whiskey. Guys, again, I'm a huge fan of Jack Daniel's. I love what they do. Don't get me wrong, there's been some releases that I have, question marks about. However, this is not one. This is a fantastic bonded rye whiskey. And for the price that you're going to pay for it, it's an absolute steal. There's a ton of flavors and complexities on this whiskey. There's a lot of different layers to it. But I think they hit it out of the park with this one. And again, not only that, but the price point on this whiskey it's unbeatable, to be honest with you. For the flavors, the complexities, and the layers that you get on a bonded rye whiskey, you couldn't really ask for more at that price point. It's an absolute must-buy, in my opinion. I want to see if I can find another bottle, because I have a feeling I'm going to get through this one rather quickly. I'd love to keep my backup that I have inside that beautiful display that they sent over. But yeah, amazing release here, guys, by Jack Daniel's. So if you guys are looking for more reviews like this, hit that subscribe button, bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. Till next time, guys, stay dusty.